Body shot. Ooh, that hurt, didn't it?
When adrenaline starts pumping and you know what you can do with this right hand, it's hard to not do that.
Here are your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Bloody Water Podcast. UFC Vegas 58 is in the books, and the Battle of the Rafaels has been won by Fiziev. Listen, this was a great main event, but it was topped off by a great card overall. We had knockouts, we had submissions, we had contenders, we had upsets. We had actually a lot of upsets on this card. But here to break it down with me, as always, is my co-host, the New Mexico native, the Santa Fe bomber himself, AJ, brother. Hey, man, first off, I have to say, we asked the fans at home, not the fans, the supporters, we asked the good folks at home, help us out, get us to 400 subscribers. And I don't know if you could see that little graphic at the bottom, AJ. 405, my man. This is where we at right now. So kudos, congratulations. How you living, brother?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I was actually talking to a couple people Saturday. I was talking to people on Saturday, and I think some of those might be coming from Austin, Texas, my man. I saw it pop up to 405. I was like, yeah, just another step on the road to 500.
That's right.
On the road to 1 million, brother. I'm doing well, man. How you doing?
I am living very well. Very busy weekend for me, folks, right? You know, I had to do some traveling, go to some weddings, go make a spontaneous Disneyland trip, you know, relive my nostalgia, my youth. I hadn't been in nearly 10 years, and before that, I'd go all the time as a kid. I go back, not much has changed. You know what time it is. But you go, you do the thing, you have the fun, you spend exorbitant amounts of money on, you know what I mean? Pay $15 for a can of Modelo. It's ridiculous, you know what I'm saying? But we made the drive back. We're back in Sin City, the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. I caught up on the fights, and I'll tell you what, AJ, man, not too many surprises, but the number one surprise that I want to talk about in just 1 second is Chase Sherman, my man. Did I not say, when your back is up against the wall, spectacular things can happen? And I'm not going to take too much credit because I did not pick him. I picked Vanderaa to win, but either way, it is a beautiful story, and I'm actually very happy that this narrative got to have that little bit of a turnaround. He now moves to 4-9 in the UFC and says, hey, I've been in here for 13 fights, and I haven't done nothing yet. Let's get it, man. What'd you think of the fights, man? What stood out to you?
Man, what stood out? Overall, the fights are, in general, great night of fights. Some interesting ones, some, things played out, but I'm right there with you, my man. That Chase Sherman fight, it made me happy to see. Yeah. And that's one of the things with those big boys, bro. Like, as much as we were saying, Vanderaa is the more well-rounded fighter, he's going to have X, Y, and Z to offer Chase Sherman, where Chase really only has X's. Man, he put those X's to work and started dropping bombs on some people, man. And that's how it goes with those big boys, man. They can get it done in any way. Very entertaining fight and a good night of fight all around, man. Even that Michael Johnson, Jamie Mullarkey, I think Michael Johnson had a little bit more to offer than Mullarkey was expected.
Yeah.
Made it to a split decision, but it was a good night of fights all around, brother.
Absolutely. Real veteran of the game, man. And speaking of that, fight of the night goes to Michael Johnson versus Jamie Mullarkey. Performance of the night goes to Rafael Fiziev defeating RDA by TKO. And then lastly, Chase Sherman, the Vanilla Gorilla. He gets the $50K bonus, brother. You got to love it. And what's funny, I don't have a picture, man, but he actually took a picture with OJ Simpson later on that night, I believe. And it's him. They stand next to each other. And the caption says, killers with a gorilla. And I'm just like, ha. Ironic? I think so. All right, folks, enough of the chit-chat, enough of the nonsense. Let's get into a little bit of recap for the props and for the moneyline bets. All right, AJ, so it looks like this is our docket. Now, I didn't get to it in time. Busy weekend, of course, but the Nina Nunes versus Cynthia Calvillo fight ended up getting scrapped. I guess Nina Nunes suffered a stomach illness the day of the fight, maybe on weigh-ins. I'm really not too sure, but that got replaced with Ricky Turcios versus Aiemann Zahabi. Either way, we're not counting that one on our list. Today, we're only going to be talking about the 5 fights, I guess, that we're gonna break down. So, AJ, looks like we have one common miss, which is our Jared Vanderaa pick. The other sole one for you is Armen Petrosyan, my man. And looking back on things today, I do think that it is important that we kind of take a look at why we picked who we picked. So we had already mentioned it, Caio Borralho, right? I said he's got more ways to win, and he kind of utilized that, and he's taking a very interesting approach by saying, I'm going to be smart, I'm going to be calculated, I don't care if I'm boring. It reminds me a lot, AJ, of I'm blanking on his name. He fights in Bellator right now. He has the blonde hair. He's wrestling everybody. He's the new Colby Covington. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I don't. The name doesn't come to mind, but I can see what you're talking about because you're right. Caio, he is taking the the non-fan favorite way of fighting. But shit, man, he's getting the dubs.
He's getting the dubs, and that's what's important, especially over a former Muay Thai champion, Armen Petrosyan, my man. I mean, he had a lot to offer on the feet for him, but he neutralized that threat, and he took him to the ground. And to be honest with you, that's kind of the approach I thought Jared Vanderaa would take with Chase Sherman. I'm like, he's won 95% of his fights via knockout. Take him to the ground, don't let him knock you out. Instead, what do? You're up on the scorecards, come round 3, and then you choose to stand and bang, and you get knocked out, and it's kind of what happens. But either way, going back to the docket, 4-1 was I on the money lines, brother. So I got the win this week, my man. Back in good company. And if you look at the scorecard at the bottom, 82-45 for me, 83-44. So we're back into a 1-fight differential. However, we hit on the Rafael Fiziev, we hit on the Said Nurmagomedov, and we hit on the Jamie Mullarkey, even though it was by the skin of our teeth with that split decision right there. So 1-4 for the prop bets is me, the coveted 0-5 for you, my man. Now, I think, AJ, it's fair to say we both have an 0-5 for the prop bets on the board. There's nothing to do here but move forward. So, good folks at home, we tell you, come to us for your premier betting analysis, for your wagering, your money lines, your props. We've been missing on the props the last 2 weeks, but it is fair to say that even if you do not rock with the props, because that is your choice, we are still delivering on the money line, which is very, very important, my man. AJ, what has this taught you this week of going on the props, kind of thinking this is how the fight's going to play out, and it really doesn't, but you still hit on the money line? So what has this taught you overall?
Still hit on the money line, man. Sometimes in the fight game, we just don't even know what's going to happen. Like the Chase Sherman, Jared Vanderaa pick, for instance, man. We thought Jared Vanderaa all day long, he's up on the scorecards, 2-0 He's just going to keep doing what he's doing. Ends up, says, nah, I got a wild hair. I'm down to knock this bad boy out. Ends up getting knocked out. And I think that's the way a lot of these things play out, man. I genuinely expected Jamie Mullarkey to come in with some heat, get a knockout on Michael Johnson, maybe the submission we were talking about, all the stuff. And ends up Michael Johnson bringing something else to offer that we're not seeing. So as much as I like to, take a little bit of a blame on the prop bets, 0-5, it's a little rough start, but that is the fight game. You never know exactly what's going to happen. And sometimes there's a little bit more that the fighters have to offer than they have been offering in the previous fights. So that, the little bit of X's and Y's come into the play right there. But that's what I'm taking out of it, man. Just a new week, a fresh start. Learn that, hey, maybe these guys that we, these killers that we've seen for a long time have a little bit of killer still left in them to keep going and make a different outcome than maybe we're expecting. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I think that the other point to take into consideration is that you're not going to be the same carbon copy of yourself every fight out, right? That's the whole point of a training camp, is to evolve. So you bring a little something different. And sometimes, like Jamie Mullarkey said it himself, and obviously we'll talk about all this in depth in 1 second, but it just stood out to me. He says, yeah, I was going to go in there and grapple. That was what my coaches was telling me. But then we got in there and it was just too much fun. So I just wanted to stand and bang. So it's just like, well, you got to love it for the fighter in all of us, right? But yeah, it's entertaining, my man. So once again, over and unders, we hit on the 1-4. So rough night on the over and unders, rough night on the props, but it was a decent night overall on the money line. Like I said, 4-1 for me, 3-2 for you. 1 pick differential, AJ. So hold on to that lead while you got it, brother. But here we are with the props, folks. The lone solid pick, I guess, is the Caio Borralho versus on points, at plus 240. I called it. You had to take it to the bank. We were, 1 round away from a Fiziev points prop that looked like money all day, but he ended up doing the inevitable and knocked out RDA. Beautiful thing. Nurmagomedov was not able to get the sub on Andrade, who was very, very tough competitor. Vanderaa, like you said, didn't grapple. And then Mullarkey, AJ, man, you got to give us a little credit, right? Johnson rocked Mullarkey. Mullarkey rocked Johnson multiple times. It's like, it was almost a KO. It was like just right there on the cusp. But, that's the fight game right there. So, last thing, 1-4 for me for the props, 0-5 for my man AJ. We will do better next week, folks. I think it's safe to say that. But with that being said, let's talk about some main card, brother. Let's get into it. But before we do that, folks, we just talked about it earlier. We're at about 405 subscribers and whatnot. Actually, last time I checked it right before we hopped on, it was about 406 subscribers. So now let's boost out to 410, 420. Coincidence? I think not. But the goal that we have here is boost us up to 500, because that means we'll be halfway to our goal. Right now, we're hoping, and it's a lush goal, right? But we're hoping right now we can get to 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year. Because if you help us do that, folks, you will help us aid with the resources we need to provide you the coverage that we do each and every week. Once you hit 1,000 subscribers, and I believe it's 4,000 to 4,500 public watch hours on YouTube. And I'm giving a little transparency here. You get entered into YouTube's partner program. That means you can then make money off of your videos. That means you don't have to go to outside corporations or companies to get the money. You can do it directly through YouTube. Help us out, folks. If you want the great coverage to continue, which it will regardless, get us to 1,000 subscribers. You dig. All right, AJ, enough with all that nonsense. Now, let's break down this main card, brother.
Have you seen that replay, buddy? Your head was bouncing around like a pinball machine.
Time for some main card breakdown, courtesy of your hosts, Derick G and AJ. All right, AJ, you said it yourself. RDA had a little more to offer for Rafael Fiziev than I think that he may have thought. However, I do think it's impressive nonetheless that Fiziev, even though they were kind of slow pacing it, right, the first couple of rounds, when it's time to go, the man went. And I told you, he sits down on his punches. And when he sat down, he did something to RDA that not a lot of people do, man. Not a lot of people have knocked out RDA. And when he got hit with a couple of those hooks in the 5th round, it looked like he was, oh, man, where am I at? What's happening here? Either way, that plus 235 TKO prop hit on Rafael Fiziev, man. What do you make of it?
Man, you're right. Those a couple of those shots were thudding, man. And even in live action when I was watching it, I was like, oh, man, that might have been a little quick. Might have been a little quick of a stoppage from the referee, and I forget who the ref is. But, you go back to that replay, and you see him actually get stiffed standing and then get stiffed on the ground as well. Fiziev has some absolute bombs in the hands. And you're right, Derick. I was a little surprised with how slow rolling they were going on those first rounds. It really made sense that they were going to pick it up in the 4th and the 5th because especially for the control and the amount of grappling that RDA was trying to get done to nullify the striking of Fiziev. They're trying to hold on to the gas tank. So overall, I thought it was a great game plan from both fighters. It's just Fiziev, when he said, all right, it's time to end this fight, it's time to end the fight, he did.
What do you make that RDA attempted 16 takedowns on Fiziev? RDA, this is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. This is a dude who has some pretty outstanding wrestling, who's been able to take down a lot of his opponents. 16 takedown attempts, he only landed 2 on Fiziev. Does this speak more to the takedown defense of Fiziev that is pretty coveted? A lot of people talk very highly of him. I think he actually has the second best percentage for takedown defense besides Kamaru Usman. So is it Fiziev or is it RDA and you're 38 years old and it's just not hitting the same way that it used to? What do you make of it?
Well, I kind of credit both of them for it, man, because Fiziev, yes, amazing takedown defense. We've all kind of known that too. He has those, very dexterous hips, very strong hips. His kicks are coming out of nowhere, so he has the flexibility and the dexterity to avoid a lot of those takedowns. But I actually give credit to RDA for shooting 16 takedowns on his own. That's a lot of effort putting in while still maintaining the pressure, still maintaining the gas tank. And, I think he got the first takedown or might have been the second takedown in the 4th. Like, it was, that's a long time. That's 20 minutes of fight right there to get a takedown and finally get it. And then to Fiziev's credit, man, once his butt hit the ground, every single time he popped back up, there was the last one where it took him a little while, 10 seconds still being held down. But at the end of the day, he still got up so very impressive. And I don't discredit RDA for not getting the takedowns. I think that's just a Fiziev skill. But the fact that this dude is able to shoot that many and still keep it going, that's what impressed me most about it. How do you feel about it?
Well, everything you said makes a lot of sense, man. Fiziev is a tough man to take down regardless, but I think seeing RDA not really be able to hold him down kind of goes to show what level Fiziev truly is on, because we were talking about who has he fought as of late, right? His best performance came against Mark Chikasi, who is not a bad fighter whatsoever, right? He just hasn't had really the success that the Bone Crusher was kind of looked out to, have, right? But is this the passing of the torch? This is really the way I think about it. Is RDA kind of with this loss saying, all right, Fiziev, man, you're the next, like we talked about it before, you're the new breed of lightweights. You're the new breed of fighters that is going to kind of, make a run for the championship. The old breed, unfortunately, the former champion, Rafael Dos Anjos, sometimes you got to just take a step back and say, all right, I took a run at welterweight. It didn't work out. I dropped back down to lightweight for one last run. I fight this top 10 guy. I'm number 7, and I lose to him. Now, RDA, most likely, he gets dropped down a spot 2, maybe 3. Fiziev, he's now that top 10 guy. I don't know. This just feels like, I don't want to say it's the end of RDA because the man looks like he still has a lot of fight in him, but it does feel like a chance at a title is kind of a long shot at this point.
Yeah, kind of a long shot. And anytime I see a fighter like this, especially a lot of the Brazilians, I always think of Jose Aldo. This is going to be fighting for quite a while. And I think the same thing for RDA. He'll probably be fighting for quite a while. I don't necessarily know if title contention is in his future, at least at the moment. but I do somewhat signify this as the passing of the torch. Our Fiziev coming in, especially the new breed. We always talk about it, sending the old dogs out to pasture, and thankfully, I don't think, like you said, I don't think RDA is done, but his title contention spots are running a little slim to none, if you will. So, as much as you hate to see it, I think it's one of those father time moments,
So, brother, RDA, he's been fighting for a long time. He's fought some of the best of the best. We talked about his hit list in the preview show, but I just want you to take a quick guess right now. If you had to guess a year, right? A year or a fighter, who do you think is the last person, or what year was the last time that RDA actually got stopped in a fight, that he actually got finished in a fight?
Ooh. I say 2015.
My man, you were close as hell. Not quite there. Actually, a little sooner, 2016. He got stopped by Eddie Alvarez in the first round with punches, my man. And that was, remember, when he lost his championship. That's how Eddie got the championship right there. So this just goes to show, since the last time he was champion, he had not been finished since then. Now, it's been all these years. It's been, 5 years, 6 years later, and he get finished by Fiziev. This speaks to the level that the Muay Thai fighter is on, and this goes to show that Fiziev, being a great striker, he's not just a great striker, man. He's a little more well-rounded than we all think. I'm very excited to see who's next for Rafael Fiziev, because I believe he called out Justin Gaethje. Everybody wants a piece of Justin Gaethje at this point, man, but we'll see what's next for him. Big win by Rafael Fiziev. Now, AJ, we don't have much to say on this fight, but Caio Borralho got the decision prop plus 240 cashed in, cash money. And he basically had the approach that most people in the building thought he was going to take, which was, why sit there and strike with a Muay Thai champion, take him down, do the thing Gregory Rodriguez should have done, just take him down and hold him there, and then we'll see what happens there. Now, the rough part about this is that he won. Caio Borralho won, but then he also lost at the same time. And the reason why he lost is because all the fans hated the performance. And can you blame the fans? No, you can't. And the person that I was talking about in the intro, AJ, Danny Sabatello, that's who I was talking about. He was on the Dana White's Contender Series, domination grappling win. And what happened? Did he get a shot to the UFC? No. So then he goes to Bellator. What happened in Caio Borralho's first time in Dana White Contender Series? Domination grappling. Did he get a contract? No. He had to knock him out. So he says, well, I'm in the big show now, so I can do whatever I want. As long as I win, that's what's going to keep coming. 4 or 5 takedowns for 10 minutes of control time, brother. I mean, he's going to be a real problem if he can continue to do this to everybody else. But my question to you is Uncle Dana going to push the man?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, man. I think Uncle Dana is going to push him to an actual top tier wrestler and say, okay, you want to grapple? All right, let's get this going so we can show you that, there's other moves out there. But I really don't. I mean, if you follow Caio Borralho's path that he's taken, like you said, doubling up on the Dana White Contender Series, having to get the knockout, and kind of holding a little bit of a bitterness, to the brass that set him on that path. I think he's gonna have a hard roll to toe going forward, man. Because one, you're already kind of pissed off at the brass, so you're gonna fight your own fights. You're gonna be a little stubborn about it. We're all a little stubborn right there, and then not making fan friendly fights. It's just it's hard to sell, And as much as we hate to say that this is a business, an entertainment business, it really is. And Borralho, man, he has all the muscles. He has the tattoos. He has all the stuff looking camera wise like he can get it done. But then you go out there and lead a fight like that. I don't think it's going to make Uncle Dana very happy at all, or even any of the brass, or any of the matchmakers or anything like that. It's just it's hard to sell when there's other fighters out there who are willing to do even what Jamie Mullarkey said. Plan was out there to go and wrestle. Turns out it was a lot more fun to knuckle up, and that's the kind of fighter we like to see.
Absolutely. No, you're 100% right about that. But a win is a win, man. And he is on the board. Now 2-0 in the UFC. So this is very big for Caio Borralho. And you know who he calls out? He calls out Dricus du Plessis. And I'm just like, is that who you want? You want du Plessis? You want that guy? He could knock your head off for real, bro. But then again, we just saw du Plessis against Brad Tavares, and he was able to pass that test. So if he could pass that test, Caio Borralho, you're going to have to offer a little more on the feet to be able to really give him a challenge, especially now. But he's smart, though. Isn't Borralho smart? He calls out a ranked guy. He says, 2 fights into the UFC, give me a ranked guy. And if we're talking about getting the push, that might just be what's necessary right now. But either way, I do think that this was a good stepping stone win because Armen Petrosyan, he did have, very good form coming off of the major win against Gregory Rodriguez. You get a win over the guy who beat that guy. Okay, now we're talking here. So I guess the question becomes, if Caio Borralho maintains this wrestler style, man, it's just going to be about storyline, about narrative. I think that the skill is there. We know how good he is. But then again, the decision prop is what we were looking for the whole entire time. He got the job done. Big win by Caio Borralho. I wish I had more to say, but until he actually shows us a little bit more, there's not really much else to say. I mean, he did get outstruck in terms of total strikes by about 30 strikes, bro. So he got outstruck. In terms of significant strikes, this is even crazier. He landed 12 significant strikes in the fight. That's what he's credited for via ESPN. I don't know how long that's going to last, brother. So, big win by Caio Borralho, but hopefully we get a little more excitement on the board. But I do appreciate the win. Now, AJ, am I wrong to say that every time this dude graces my television screen, I cannot take my eyes off? Not for 1 second. Said Nurmagomedov is one of the funnest fighters to watch in the men's bantamweight division right now, if not just the entire UFC. And the performance he was able to have against a Douglas Silva de Andrade, I thought was incredibly impressive. Not because he was able to keep him at kicking range, hit him with a million spinning attacks and all that good stuff. He was able to get his back taken by Andrade, which is something I worried about in the pre-show, and then get out. He was able to hit hip tosses, hit trips, hit throws, win grappling exchanges, win striking exchanges, bloody up Andrade. He was able to kind of do whatever he wanted. And even though he didn't get the finish, he more or less did what he wanted at will. So it was like an easy win. And use that word respectfully, right? Easy, whatever, but he made it look easy is the point that I'm trying to make. Cashed in on the plus 225 decision prop. Not what we were expecting. We were thinking he might be able to pull out that submission, but Andrade is a tough guy, man, so maybe we should have saw that coming. What did you make of this performance? Was this a take you to the next level performance by Nurmagomedov, or was this you just need a stiffer opposition because you're just kind of steamrolling everybody? What do you think?
I think it's a little bit more of the latter, the little bit more of you need a stiffer competition, not necessarily a giant leap up, but just another step to keep it going, keep propelling you through. Because I was actually a little more surprised at how tough, and I guess I shouldn't have been surprised at how tough Silva de Andrade is, because homeboy is made of brick. Like you can see how tense he is all the time. But it's just that's what I saw the whole time. Said coming in, doing his thing, hitting the kicks, hitting the spins, all this stuff, and still getting into somewhat sticky situations, like you said, getting a backpack put on you, getting control, you having to use other skills out there shown, but it wasn't what I would call a highlight reel, performance the entire time. Sure, he was able to do, whatever, whenever he wanted to it, but it also looked like Douglas de Silva de Andrade was just eating shots, just eating them and kept on walking forward. So it questioned me, how much power does Said have? Is it just flash, or is there actually some pop between those shots? That's kind of my big question. So I'm hoping they don't jump him up a whole level. Yeah. They actually just kind of keep him building. Because even it showed, as much as the surname is Nurmagomedov, and they do train together. They're not related, so he doesn't have that dominating smash style. I still think it's there. The grappling's there. The skill's there. It's just it needs a little bit more polishing, in my opinion. And as it's hard to say, something that shiny like Said can be polished, but I think there's a little bit of things that he'll be great once he does.
You know what, man? It's tough because when I look at a Said Nurmagomedov, I never thought that the power was inherent in just let me sit down and swing and bang, because he actually sat down in a couple exchanges where you're like, oh, he's really throwing. I always thought his power came from his precision, his spinning back kick to your liver, you know what I mean? His question mark kick. He threw this beautiful oblique kick that he then rechambered and then dropped a question mark kick on top, and I was just like, this dude is just amazing to watch. And when it came to those grappling exchanges too, like I said, it wasn't smesh style, it wasn't Islam Makhachev style, but it was very much, I'm going to do kind of whatever I want to. I'm going to nullify whatever you do to me. I'm going to switch position. I'm going to get my reversals. I'm going to get my sweeps. Dude, he's legit. I felt like there was not a moment that he was really losing the fight, even though he did get 29-28 times 2, so that he did lose one round on 2 of the judges' scorecards. I guess my question to you is, what do you make of it when it's a unanimous decision for Nurmagomedov? However, it's 2 29-28s and 1 30-27. Like when you get one judge, once again, there's one judge who's like, oh no, he won all rounds. The other judge is like, no, he clearly lost one round. Even with the win, do you still think that's problematic?
A little bit, because, and I think a lot of it has to do with the pressure of, 1, his last name, 2, of him saying, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to get 3 knockouts within 3 minutes. There's a lot of pressure that goes into it. And I just think the something, as much as the win was there, the win was the win. And that's all, at the end of the day, all we're looking for. It seemed like he was also a little unsatisfied, a little unfulfilled with the performance. And I don't really know, man. There needs to be something a little bit more to Said that comes through, and like you said, that one kick where he nailed a nice little oblique kick to the knee, chambers, comes back up to the head, lands the kick, but doesn't affect Andrade. Literally, Andrade just saw it coming, keeps on going, keeps walking. If that would have been anybody else, you land something like that, you put him to sleep. You touch that button, you go to sleep. So maybe it is the toughness of Andrade, the granite chin that he does present, because homeboy was bloodied up and still walking forward. So maybe that's it. Maybe just the power was there and the precision was there. Said, it was just Andrade being that. But it does cause a little bit of a reason to pause once you see, like you said, 29-28. You're starting to have the rest of the division catch up to these fighters. Well before you were just starching people left and right.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing to take into consideration is you look at his last couple of wins. You have wins over Ricardo Ramos, Mark Striegel, Cody Stamen, and now Douglas Silva de Andrade. These are not bad wins. So we can't sit here and say you're fighting cans. No, that's not true. I do think, though, now you kind of have to give Nurmagomedov a ranked guy. Give him number 15 guy, and if we're looking at the bantamweight division, I'll actually just pull it up very quickly just so we can kind of get a landscape of who we're looking at. In the bantamweight at number 15, you have the Adrian Yanez's, you have the Frankie Edgars, and this is what's tough here, AJ, to be honest, because look who is currently... He's not currently ranked, I don't believe, in the UFC's consensus rankings, but he's ranked in my rankings, and that's Umar Nurmagomedov. So what's the likelihood that we see Said versus Umar in the future? Because if Umar gets on that cusp, what do they say? All right, we want some Nurmagomedov on Nurmagomedov violence. What are we talking about? Do you think that's in the cards?
I don't know, man. I don't know, because usually they try not to have fighters fight, friends or family or however, training partners. But once you get up to that top 5 and there's no one else there and you guys are both gunning for a title competition, a title match, I think it's about time, but I think that's when it'll happen. A little later on in the career, they're both kind of solidified as number 5, number 3, however it gets done. But I think that's when it'll happen. I don't know if they'll set them up early in their career, like soon. Do you think it'll be soon, Derick? We see a Nurmagomedov versus Nurmagomedov?
I think that somehow, some way, Khabib would come through and be like, no, we're not doing this. I'm not going to allow this. Khabib has some pull. You know what I'm saying? Maybe that was part of father's plan. You don't fight your own guys, So I still think it would be a fun fight to see Said versus like an Adrian Yanez or a Frankie Edgar or a Sean O'Malley, right? But this is the question, is do they want to bring him up to speed that way? Do you want to have 2 Nurmagomedovs in your top 15? And that's when we talk politics, and that's when we talk all that stuff. Because I'm not going to say that for whatever reason they'd be like, no, we can't allow this to happen. But I do think that it's just a little bit too much. You already hear complaints right now, too much Eastern European domination in MMA. And I'm like, well, this is just that they're good, man. What do you want to say? You know what I mean? Are you mad that there's a bunch of Americans dominating? No, because this is what they cater to the sport. Either way. Stepping stone for Said for sure. I do expect higher ranked opposition, but I thought it was a great performance, man. I have nothing to knock on him. I just think Andrade is a tank, and we'll just kind of leave it at that. So big win, cash in on that plus 225 prop. Thought he'd get the finish, and this is kind of the rough part. Last thing, him and Umar both respectively. I mean, they couldn't get a finish in their last fight, man. You know what I mean? And they broke their finishing streak. So we're going to need to see some more fancy performances, some more exciting performances to get the people really talking, So that's that. Now we move on to the Vanilla Gorilla, Chase Sherman. We were talking about him in the intro, but he cashed in on that plus 250 TKO prop. And AJ, I want you to look at these props here. You can clearly see. The odds makers gave Chase Sherman no chance of winning aside from the TKO prop. And what does he deliver on? The TKO prop. As for Jared Vanderaa, kind of the same situation, but him winning a decision was much more favorable. Plus 235 right there. Came so close, man. Literally, you came, 2 minutes away from cashing in on a decision. But, life happens. He swung and bang. And when you're in a heavyweight, all it takes is one of these, knuckles to land on you. And things go rough, man. Chase Sherman thought he was winning the fight come round 3. And he told Michael Bisping that. He said, oh, yeah, I thought I was winning. Judge scorecards, I mean, they thought otherwise. Vanderaa was doing a little more, right? He wasn't just boxing, he was kickboxing, right? He was dropping in those leg kicks. Every exchange, so for every 1-2 Chase Sherman landed, Vanderaa landed the 1-2 and the 3 on the leg kick, right? So he had a great plan, I thought. And I thought the game plan ultimately was, let's do the smart thing. Let's beat up the legs of Chase Sherman, take away all that power, and then we can kind of pick him apart at will. The problem for Jared Vanderaa, in my opinion, in this fight, keep his hands down low, man. And that's good because you don't see where the jab's coming from. All the combos are coming up from weird spots, so you don't really see him. The bad part is you have a dude with nuclear bombs in his hands in Chase Sherman who's just dropping them on you. But Chase Sherman made a great point, AJ, and I actually want your opinion on this. He says, I think the judges are counting too much for or they're not counting clean shots as much as they should be. They count a lot of the shots that get deflected and parried a little bit. Like they're counting those the equivalent of a clean shot landed. Do you think that a clean shot, I'm talking about a right hook, boom, right there on the chin, ooh, wobbled him a little bit. You think that should count? Like if that counts for 3 points, that a deflected shot should only count for like 1.5 point? Like, do you kind of view it that way, or how do you see it?
It's weird because I don't really think a deflected or a blocked shot should be counted so much as a point for the attacker. You know what I'm saying? And I always go back to the leg kick situation. You know, somebody throws a leg kick at you, you check it, it hurts them more than it hurts you. Should that be your point? I don't really know, because you're not the one initiating the action. You're just defending the action. It's a hard one, but I do think that clean shots should count for more, because you're actually sneaking one past the guard. You're catching them when they're not expecting it, and I think that's really what should count. I don't know if blocks should count for either opponent, or for the offensive or the defense. What do you think?
Well, it's funny because Aljamain Sterling, I was watching a video when he was talking about that Sean O'Malley, Pedro Munoz, and he was saying Sean O'Malley's talking about, oh, I get a point because I checked it and that hurts him. And he was like, well, no, you're just the same thing for takedown. Do you get a point because you defended a takedown? No, you just did what you're supposed to do. You avoided getting put on your back on the mat. Cool. In this spot, you avoided really absorbing that damage. So it's kind of tough, man. It's tough because of the way that the fights are scored today with the boxing system. It's just tough. It's not the same thing. MMA does need kind of its own unique system eventually, but for now, this is the parameters that we're working with. The numbers, man. Chase Sherman was up on the numbers. 137 total strikes for Sherman, 109 for Vanderaa, and this is significant and total. Both sides. So Sherman, I mean, I don't really know. It's kind of weird because he outstruck him, but you were losing. But, either way, Jared Vanderaa was ultimately doing the right thing, man. He was doing the right thing. He was putting it on him. But you leave yourself open. You leave yourself vulnerable like that. You get caught, and Chase Sherman, much needed win. Now, my question to you, AJ, is the one that I posed in the beginning for the pre-show, and I said, I think these two men are fighting for their jobs, and you agreed with me. However, even though Chase Sherman gets the big win, you still move to 4-9 in the UFC. Jared Vanderaa is now, I believe, 1-5 in the UFC. There is a possibility that both men get cut. Even though I still think they're both great prospects in this very shallow heavyweight division, there is a possibility both men get cut. What do you think of it?
I think there's always a possibility that these guys get cut, especially with the records they have. Their saving grace is it's a very shallow division in the heavyweight, and Chase Sherman already got cut and then got let back in. So I don't know if we'll be seeing this yo-yo effect that the UFC matchmakers will be putting out to these heavyweights. I think they just need bodies. They just need bodies for the heavyweight division. When stuff like this can happen, let them fight. Let them have a little bit longer of a career in the UFC, just because you need those numbers. Unless we're just talking, you only want 10 fighters in the heavyweight division, then we might be seeing some cuts. And as much as if these guys were in lightweight and they had the records they had, then I'd be like, oh yeah, it's chop and block season for both of them. But that's just not the case with heavyweights. And fortunately / unfortunately, we just don't have the numbers in the heavyweight division to actually make that a reality. Do you think that, or do you think they're actually on the chopping block?
I feel on both sides. I think Uncle Dana can do anything. You know what I mean? He could be like, I just want to bring in, because the Contender Series is actually about to start up in a couple of weeks. So he could be like, all right, y'all are out. Let's make some room for the new Contender Series boys that are coming in. But this is really what I want to go to when we're talking about this situation. So great win by Chase Sherman, of course. But I want to talk about the state of the heavyweights and just the state of heavyweights in America. Now, I'm not saying there's not great heavyweights in other places. Of course there are. But in America specifically, man, this is a conversation I've had for many years where we say that the reason why American boxing is no longer great anymore, same thing for MMA, the heavyweights, why they're no longer great, is because look at all the capable heavyweights that are performing in other sports right now. The basketball players, the football players, the people who are getting paid millions of guaranteed dollars in other sports, they're there. They have no real incentive to want to become a fighter, aside from like Greg Hardy, right, who gets kicked out of the NFL. Then he's like, okay, now I'll come over and fight, right? You have no real incentive because you get paid so much more lucratively and with less damage on your mind and your body than when you come into mixed martial arts or heavyweight. Now, football, you can argue differently on that one. But the point is, when you're 6'5", 240, you know what I mean? And you get paid, what are they making in NFL contracts, man? $10 million, something like that, versus here, come fight and put your life on the line and get paid $100K, $200K. Like, it's just different. So I think that's partially why, to be honest with you, man, I think that is partially why we have such shallow heavyweights. Look at all the heavyweight divisions, not just the UFC. Look at the Bellator's heavyweight division. Look at all of that stuff, man. I think that it's something that you definitely need to take into consideration. So do you agree with me? Do you think that there's a different perspective on there? What do you think?
No, yeah, no, I agree with you. And it's rough too, because a lot of the people, I talk to a lot of parents, trying to get the kids coaching and stuff like that. A lot of them think fighting is something where it's like, that's so dangerous. It's so dangerous. I don't want my kid fighting. It's like, bro, your kid is literally like a linebacker running full force, head down, just charging in. That's a lot of brain damage. But it's the allure of the NFL. It's the allure of basketball. It's the allure of all these things growing up. Like even when I was a kid, as much as I did, combat sports since 8, all the way up until high school, junior high, whatever it was. You still want to be the 3-sport athlete. You still want to play, football, baseball, basketball. You still want to do all those ones because that's what's in the media. That's what's attractive. That's what normal thing is. If you're the weird karate kid, nobody really likes that. So that's why I think a lot of the other sports kind of take precedent. And it's a thing when you were talking to them, there's what is it, 14 people on the field in each time, and those dudes are 300 some pounds. That's a lot of heavyweights we can put in the league, but they'd rather just be in the trenches, blocking, doing stuff, and it's just a little more apt, a little more easily accessible, if you will, to swallow for family, friends, and all that stuff. So that's where I think the hard part comes in, and that's why we see a lot of the young, the smaller fighting or the smaller weight classes have a lot more prominence, because you can't be 5'5" in the NFL. There's very, very few Muggsy Bogues out there slamming at 5'3", where we can see some banging fights at 5'3".
No, you're right about that. You're definitely right about that. So I'd hope that there's going to be a resurgence. You know what I mean? But I do agree, it's the more socially acceptable thing is to play football, even though football is kind of getting a stigma now. But play basketball, play baseball, whatever. But you're right. When you talk about martial arts, you do have cases of martial arts gone wrong. And I think that's what we have here. Ricky Turcios versus Aiemann Zahabi. So Ricky Turcios, known for, first off, he is the Tough 29 champion, right? He is the ultimate fighter for season 29. He got a big win over Brady Highstand. That was his first UFC victory right there. But now you fight someone who's a veteran. He hasn't fought in like 2 years, something like that. And Aiemann Zahabi, who is the, I believe, younger brother of Faraz Zahabi, the very, very talented, very decorated, how would you coach? What do you call him? Trainer, coach, whatever you want to call him, right? Out there in Canada. But in this situation, man, we had some real traditional Kia, some karate style. We had some like old school traditional martial arts mixed in with his MMA, which was totally awesome. But Ricky Turcios landed a total 27 of 235 strikes, AJ. That is historically bad. That is very bad. That is like ridiculously like, man, what was the point of all of that output when you land nothing? And a lot of those Kias were a little stomping your foot on the ground, just trying to, what's up, bro? Just trying to check somebody. And for those who are just listening, man, is when somebody, tried to pump fake you a little bit, try to get you to flinch, for flinching, Turcios did a lot of that. Zahabi, though, if you look at his career, if you look at his last fight even, what did he do in his last fight? He got a knockout win over Draco Rodriguez. How did he do it? He let Draco Rodriguez come to him. He lulled him in, let him be the aggressor, caught him with the counter, and it looked like he was trying to do the same thing to Turcios. However, the scrappy Turcios, even though he started to bring it towards the end, it just, you had the right idea. We just weren't landing. And I think that he's going to go home after that, and he's going to be like, all right, man, we need to get back to the basics. Because when they were announcing the winner, Turcios really thought that he won in the moment, right? Like when they announced that it was Zahabi, he was like, shit, I didn't win. But either way, Aiemann Zahabi, man, efficient. Landed almost 50% of his strikes, man. You know what I mean? Did what he needed to do. No takedowns. Stuffed all Turcios' takedowns. He avoided the mind games. He just took the veteran approach, man. He just seemed more experienced, more decorated. Big win by Zahabi, or was this just an eccentric off night for Ricky Turcios?
No, I think it was a big win by Zahabi, and it showed more that consistency is better than flash. And that's kind of the whole thing I was thinking about this fight when I was watching it, is that Zahabi, he's seen it all. He's been training, up there at TriStar, so he's doing all this stuff. He's not worried about some foot stomps. He's not worried about, all the extra stuff that we were talking about before, the weird karate kid. Ricky Turcios, that boy is a character, man, and I like him for it too. I love when somebody brings in their full character, but it didn't faze Zahabi at all, man. He's seen many a different fighter, so he was just in there for his game plan. He had the, like I said, he had the no, I'm not going to stress these things. I'm just going to stick and stay consistent and keep it going. And really, that was the whole fight, man. I mean, it wasn't too out of character for what we were watching for both fighters. I expected Turcios to be this wild man. This is this crazy thing going in, doing all kinds of. If he doesn't do like a capoeira kick, scream and jump, something or other, like I'd be like, whoa, that's surprising. And same thing for Zahabi, man. Kept it true, kept it to his fight style. It is what it is. Not really a bad performance by Turcios, I don't think, but just an off night, when somebody's not falling for the tricks, not getting put in, not drawn into it, and then you're able to strike. It's a hard fight when we always say it's the boring ones where it's hard when your opponent doesn't engage.
Yeah.
And it's not that Zahabi wasn't engaging, it's just Zahabi wasn't falling for the tricks.
Yeah, so that's the whole entire thing. You're trying to bait it out, and it never comes out. So you're like, how do I initiate my offense, man? And that's where you saw the inefficiency. But plus 400 money or plus 400 prop cash for the decision on Aiemann Zahabi, man. The big win. I was just worried that Turcios, he was more, I'm not going to say hyped up, more relevant, but he's just been busier as of late. He's been fighting a lot. He's been doing his thing. This is kind of a long layoff for him. But for Zahabi, man, it's been a long time since he's fought. It's been a couple years. So it's like, does the ring rust? Dominic Cruz, ring rust doesn't exist. But you know how it goes. Big win by Aiemann Zahabi. And he actually handled it like a true professional after. He was like, Ricky Turcios is the nicest guy. Yeah, he was a little weird in there, but, respect, by my homeboys instructionals, let's go, so big win by Aiemann Zahabi. Now, AJ, we'll cap it off with the fight of the night. Jamie Mullarkey versus Michael Johnson. And leave it to Michael Johnson, man. He's on Twitter talking about the judges aren't watching. I should have won the fight. I thought it was very close. I thought it was very back and forth. If you look at the numbers, Mullarkey actually outlanded Johnson by about 30 strikes. He started pouring it on towards the end of the fight. However, Johnson did knock down Mullarkey, and he had him in trouble in that first round, bro. But then it went back and forth, and they were knocking each other down, wobbling each other. Michael Johnson had a very Michael Johnson-esque performance. You do amazing in the start, and then the opponent starts to catch up with you a little bit. Now, even though we were so close from that plus 200 TKO prop for Jamie Mullarkey, that decision prop was inevitable, plus 250, cashed in. What did you learn in this fight? Because Michael Johnson, I think actually on fight night, that marked the 5-year anniversary since Michael Johnson versus Justin Gaethje happened. And that was an incredible fight. But what did you learn about Jamie Mullarkey, given that Michael Johnson is a true veteran? Yeah, Mullarkey lost to Jalen Turner. Yeah, he lost to Brad Riddell, right? But you just beat Michael Johnson. And even though he's not the man that he once was, he's still sharp as ever, brother. What did you learn?
Still sharp as ever. Man, for Jamie Mullarkey, the biggest thing that I took away is, as much as this dude is the real deal, he's still a scrappy, young fighter with a lot to learn, and he is a very talented fighter. We saw it. He's there. He's going to be bringing the fight consistently, but this dude has a lot of tendencies in which he just gets in there and he's wild, man. He's down for the scrap, which we love. I love as a fighter, I love as a fan. I love seeing somebody go in there and say, fuck it, let's just throw some hands. Let's go wild in here. Let's have some fun. Let's have a fight of the night. That's what made me excited to watch Jamie Mullarkey. But he still's got a lot of room to grow and a lot of potential, man, to fill. This is going to be around for quite a while, And Jamie Mullarkey proved you're going up against a stud like Michael Johnson. You underestimate this guy, he's going to make you pay for it. And I think there was a little bit of shock, a little bit like, oh shit, Michael Johnson got some crack to him. So, okay. And that's where the fight really started picking up. Things started changing. And we saw a true entertainer in Jamie Mullarkey come out and want that kind of smoke, where most people, they would stick to the game plan. They would shoot for the takedowns. They would get this fight. They would take the Caio Borralho approach instead of the all right, let's have some fun.
Absolutely. And he actually said that it's like you get a look in the eyes. You lock eyes and there's this unspoken, all right, we're going to swing and bang. You know what I'm saying? So you got to love that, man, because he put it all on the line. Imagine you lose another one against Michael Johnson here. Now you put yourself in a very compromising spot. So I do think the evolution of a Jamie Mullarkey, he needs to listen to the coaches and do the right thing, because even though it might not be the most flashy, even though it might not get you the 50K bonus, you want wins on your record, brother. You're at the stage of your career where you need to rack up the wins, man. So Michael Johnson, though, he does scream robbery, man. And this is what I need to do right here is I need to pull up the MMA decisions, and we're going to take a look ourselves. Now, off just the top, off just what you remember, do you scream robbery, or do you think, yeah, this was a close fight, but ultimately Mullarkey got the job done?
I say close fight. It was a lot closer, and it might be because I was rooting for Mullarkey. I was choosing for Mullarkey, so I was happy to get the win. But it was a very, very close fight, and I wouldn't have been upset if Johnson got it. In fact, I think it was like round 2, I was thinking, I was like, damn, Michael Johnson might win this fight. Like he might pull this off. But I don't know. What do you think? Robbery?
Well, I didn't think that until I looked at these MMA decisions, and look at this, bro. It's Johnson all across the board. Everybody says has it for Johnson. Only what? It's about 4 for Mullarkey compared to if I had to just 15, 12 for Johnson, right? So clearly, all of the media thinks that Johnson did enough to get the win. And I can see that because in round 3, Johnson was putting it on, landed some clean shots on him and whatnot. I guess the question is, what do you count? Like, do you count the harder, stronger shots, or do you count the volume? Because like I said, Mullarkey, he was up about 30 strikes on the fight, man. So it's arguable. But for Michael Johnson, his whole thing was the judges aren't watching, and I want pictures of the judges literally not watching the fight as it's happening, and they're just writing down numbers, on whatever they feel. Do you think he's right to call robbery here, though? You know what I mean? Or do you think that you have to just do a little bit more? The numbers sometimes do lie. Even though we say numbers don't lie, sometimes the numbers don't tell the whole story. So do you think that he should have done a little bit more, or do you think that he's in the right to be able to just say, hey, no, judges got it wrong?
It's rough because, like I said, it was a very close fight, and I've seen it a couple times too, where the judges, you'll look, they'll pan across, and they just happen, see the judges inside the frame, and they're looking down, or they're talking, or they're writing, or they're doing a thing. And you're like, bro, are you even watching the fight? But they do have a monitor right in front of them. They do have a couple different things. They probably got headsets, so they're listening to other things. And as much as the numbers, the numbers tell a different kind of a story right there. I don't know if it's exactly the numbers that lie or the guy that's taking in the stats that has a little biasy right there, where he's like, oh, well, that shot doesn't count, or that takedown doesn't count, or that one does. So I think it's a little more of a human error. And if I was in Michael Johnson's camp, I'd be upset too. I'd be calling robbery. I'd be saying all the same stuff, especially when the media scores are right there and the eye test is a little closer than we would like. So as much as, like I said, if I was in Johnson's corner, I'd be screaming robbery. I think it was a close fight. Don't really think robbery. Very, very impressive from both sides. But it's one of those hard ones where it's like, which one do you count more? Because you're right. Do you count the power, the output, the pressure, or do you count the volume, keeping somebody at bay, keeping them not doing what they want to do to you? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, brother. So fair points right there. Jamie Mullarkey gets the big win over Michael Johnson, and that is your main card, folks. So with that being said, let's knock out a little bit of prelim pour-over, brother, and then just get to the rest of the show, my man. So let's talk about it. Cody Brundage, one of those names. Brundage, my man. He got the big TKO win over Tresean Gore. So you have another Tough 29 alumni. He didn't get the win on the board, man. 0-2 in the UFC, not the start to a very promising, what seemed to be a promising career on The Ultimate Fighter. But here's the big key. Brundage, he's a great wrestler, man, and he shot to the legs, man. He did what he needed to do, try to nullify the offensive approach of a Tresean Gore. And Tresean Gore put himself in a position where he relied on his weapon, the weapon that enamored the fans, which is the leg kicks. He relied on it a little bit too much, didn't set it up, and got caught clean, man. It's really as simple as that if you break it down. Do you think that there is hope, there is promise for Tresean Gore in the future, or do you think that maybe the Ultimate Fighter just told a little bit of story than what the actual big show, is there for? What do you think?
The soap opera for men delivered a little too much storyline for Tresean Gore could possibly be the case, man, because I see we all saw a lot of promise in Tresean, a lot of promise. And then I wondered if the knee injury, it might not be a knee injury. I thought it was a knee injury. Whatever injury he suffered that prevented him from going to the finale. I think it kind of maybe impacted him a little bit more mentally and a little bit more, like you didn't get the coaching you needed. Kind of felt like he was, shook off the season, didn't get the shine that he deserved. Maybe there's a little bit of that going on, but I do think there's a lot of promise in Tresean, and I just think he needs to get with the right camp. I don't even know what camp he trains out of, but I think he gets one into the new what's the new ATT's name? Help me out, Derek. What did they change their name to?
Well, it's not ATT. Sanford MMA is now Killcliff FC.
Thank you. The new Killcliff, or like any of those big gyms, Sanford, AT&T, Killcliff, whatever the case may be, wherever wants to go, even Denver, whatever the case. I just think it's a little bit more training, a little bit more attention to detail, because you're right. He has all the stuff, all the enamored, big power in the right hand, all the stuff. you just throw a lazy leg kick and get caught. It's kind of, day one stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. So I think right now you just got to get back to the drawing board. You got to come back stronger than ever. A little more offensive because at the end of the day, he landed 8 of 27 strikes. So just not where you want to be. But there was a big win by Brundage right there. Now, Antonina, she got the split decision win over Courtney Casey, and I always know with the Courtney Casey fight, it's going to be close. It's probably going to be a split decision because how the majority of her fights go. Very, very close. She ended up edging it out, man. It was a big win, but I do think that this shows time and time again the discrepancy between the levels of the Shevchenko sisters, man. Valentina, the younger sister, she's just levels, light years above and beyond. Antonina, she's still got a lot of promise. She's still very good, but she did fight also Courtney Casey, who is now 10-10 in her MMA career, man. So this is just a tough outing right there. Shevchenko 10-4. You'd like to see some more finishes, but it was a gritty win. So shout out to that. The big one that I wanted to talk about here is Kennedy Nzechukwu, man, over Carl Roberson, brother. Kennedy Nzechukwu did some damage right here, and he showed that he's more than just a long jab. He can grapple. He can try to choke you out. He can drop elbows on the back of your head. He can do whatever he needs to do. I think he's going to be a real problem, brother. What do you think about Nzechukwu?
I think he's going to be a real problem, man. And power on power in any situation you have. And also was kind of taken, a little bit of adversity was there from Carl Roberson, man. That was a great fight. Kennedy Nzechukwu was going to be a serious problem to deal with, even if he is landing elbows on the back of someone's head. Hey, man, the power is there. The fight game is there. The willingness to finish the fight is there. And I think that's why I like Kennedy Nzechukwu the most, man. Made for a fun performance for him. And he didn't get a bonus, did he?
Nope. No bonus, bro.
Nope.
No bonus. But, that's kind of how it goes. I just think that this was a very, very impressive performance, especially on a kickboxer like Carl Roberson, man, to be able to kind of nullify all that and do whatever you wanted to in the fight. It was very impressive. Another big win, man. Said Yokub Kakramanov, man. This dude, bro, if you saw what he did to Ronnie Lawrence, he out-grappled Ronnie Lawrence, and Ronnie Lawrence out-grapples everybody. This was so impressive. This was my sleeper. The problem was it was a sleeper. It would have put you to sleep. I'm sorry, folks, on this one because this was all grappling. This was 100% grappling. And if you actually look at the numbers, it was 16 total strikes landed by Ronnie Lawrence, 105 total strikes by Kakramanov. But it's a little deceiving because those are little, pot shots, man, which do count. You have to count them. I've talked about it before. You got to count it. So significant strikes, 15 for Lawrence, 32 for Kakramanov, 10 of 16 takedowns for Kakramanov, 1 of 2 for Ronnie Lawrence, and a control time of 12 minutes and 19 seconds for Kakramanov. All I can say is, watch out for this dude. If we're talking about bantamweights right here, another up-and-comer right here who is like sneaky, about to run through the division, it is this dude. I'm telling you, man, you have the win over Trevin Jones, right? Now you have the win over Ronnie Lawrence. I cannot speak to how impressive this is. My question to you, AJ, is this the one guy that nobody's going to see coming? This is a real dark horse in the bantamweight division. Do you think nobody's going to see him coming?
This is a real dark horse in the bantamweight division with so many other opponents or so many other competitors that are kind of getting a little bit more shine, man. I do think this is going to be one of those ones where everyone's talking about Said Yokub in like 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, and then we're the ones that have been saying it for years now. That's what I really think Kakramanov's career is headed. Might be better for him too. Doesn't have the pressure that the Nurmagomedovs have, or that the Sean O'Malley's have, or all these ones that are in the spotlight and kind of in the media under deliver, if you will.
Yeah.
I think Said Yokub has a lot of leeway in that instance, if you will.
So I'll just say, remember the name, folks. Said Yokub Kakramanov. Monster in the bantamweight division. Absolute monster. All right, folks, that is your prelim pour-over. And because of the nature of this weekend's fights, really only had 2 ranked opponents. You had Fiziev, you had RDA. We already know where they stand here. Everybody else has kind of a long shot before they get into the rankings, aside from Said Nurmagomedov. So you already know what the deal is. We're going to be skipping the rankings review today and go straight to the fighter of the night. So let's get it, brother.
Right now, there is not a man on this planet that can stop me inside this octagon. The celebration is more work than the fight.
Fighter of the night. And we just talked about so many impressive performances, man, from top to bottom, from the main event to the first fight of the night. There were so many impressive performances. Now the question becomes, in very short, concise nature, who had the most outstanding performance? The intangibles, the storyline, everything came together perfectly. For you, AJ, who is your fighter of the night for UFC Vegas 58?
My fight of the night, Derick, it has to be the vanilla gorilla Chase Sherman, man. That's what I love. Like, coming back, his storyline, getting cut, getting put back on, getting obliterated in his last fight, and then coming back and thinking, okay, this guy's going to come to wrestle again. I got to stop him. Not really stopping him, not really doing stuff. But then the second the guy wants to knuckle up, you deliver, you stand your ground, and then you have one hell of an after speech where it's like, bro, I'm still here. I haven't done shit. Give me somebody else. I'm hungry. I'm ready to fight. I like Chase Sherman, man. I hope he develops a little bit more of his skill, a little bit more of his repertoire, a little more tools in the tool belt. But for a fan, this is a guy you want to pay attention to because he's willing to live and die by the knockout, and his knockouts are vicious. Chase Sherman, he's my fighter of the night. Like I said, I loved his after speech as well. He's a hungry fighter. That's what you love to see in the heavyweight division, man. Fun performance. Who's your fighter of the night, Derek?
You know what? You stole my fighter of the night, but it's okay. Because shout out to the Vanilla Gorilla. I'm going to give him his props. I already know what time it is, but I think that mine has to be Said Nurmagomedov, man. That's got to be my fighter of the night. The most unheralded contender with the most impressive performance that actually put the most people to sleep, unfortunately. But I do think that this is just a shadow of, or I shouldn't say a shadow. This is a premonition. This is, a little glimpse into the future of how dominant of a fighter this man can truly be and how he could stifle some of the best opponents out there. So I'm going to keep it short. I'm going to keep it sweet. He didn't have the outstanding performance and the speech that a Chase Sherman, the Vanilla Gorilla, did. So shout out to him, man. Like I said, we're big fans of him on this program. But Said Nurmagomedov is the future, and I will just leave it at that. He is my fighter of the night. Short and sweet. Look at that. Now, AJ, let's get into that word on the street, brother. And I honestly don't have too much to talk about today, man. But I just want to talk about a couple of headlines, brother. And the headline that I have first is, the UFC champ, Carla Esparza. She gives an injury update, plans to return before the year's end. So basically, long story short, AJ, she thought she might need to get some surgery in her hands. Didn't need to. When I went to the International Fight Week and I got a picture with the champ and I gave her the fist bump, the hand seemed to be working, brother. So I'm hoping that she's in good form, be able to defend that title. What do you make of it, my man? The strawweight division is a little bit on hold just because, the champ got to get right and all that good stuff. But a lot of people are saying this, and I think you got to give her a little more credit than what she's getting right now, because Rose Namajunas is going to be a tough outing regardless of, you know what I mean? Just Rose Namajunas is always going to be a tough outing. She was the champ. She is one of the best to do it for a reason. But I think a lot of the division says they can just walk in and just take that belt from Esparza. I think it's going to be a little harder than that. What do you think?
I think it's going to be a lot harder than that, man. You can't just walk in, especially like you said, man. Rose is always a competitor. She's always going to bring it. And for Carla to do what she's done to Rose twice, yeah, sure, she might just have her number and somebody else might be able to come in and then take it. But I don't think so, man. I think Carla Esparza is a hell of a fighter and always working, still grinding, and still has that that learning mentality, which I think drives you as a champ, Yeah, no, absolutely, man. So I think that people need to watch out because, you see Juliana Pena, a lot of people are saying Nunes is just going to walk in and take her belt back. I think it can be a little more competitive than that, even though I do favor Nunes for that, which that fight's happening at the end of this month, man. So we got a lot to look forward to. But yeah, I think same thing for Esparza, man. You're not going to just walk in there and take it. It's just going to have to be a tough outing either way. And yeah, so light on the word on the street this week. There wasn't too much news going around, but that's something that we have to keep an eye on. And lastly, AJ, Brian Ortega versus Jared Rodriguez next week, brother. Like, we have these really good main events back to back to back to back. Now the rest of the card, how it fills out, let's take a look. Let's talk about it really fast, brother. So let me make sure that we're in here too. There we go, brother. And folks who are just listening, sorry, sometimes we got to do a little bit of, adjustments to our angles and to our cameras and all that stuff. But check it out, man. Brian Ortega versus Jared Rodriguez. We got the Karate Hottie versus Amanda Lemos. That should be a banger right there. And Michelle Watterson, she also says she thinks that she has a renewed career, a renewed future now that Esparza is the champion. She thinks that she can get that belt. Muslim Salikov versus Li Jingliang, man. That's going to be a fun fight. Suma Derji versus Matt Schnell, really booked for the millionth time, but here we are. Air Jordan versus Shane Burgos. AJ, fight of the night, lock right there or what? Air Jordan versus Shane, that's on appearances. That's basically the lock right there, man.
Yep, you got Lauren Murphy versus Misha Tate. That's a rebooking right there. Punahele Soriano versus Dolce Lungiambula. Someone's getting knocked out, I think it's safe to say. AJ, buried on the prelims, not even a featured prelim. Ricky Simone versus Jack Shore. How disrespectful, my lord. But then you also have the Bill Algios versus Herbert Burns. Dustin Jacoby versus Da Un Jung. I promise you someone's getting knocked out there too. Dustin Stoltzfus versus Dwight Grant. And lastly, Jessica Penne, versus former Invicta champion Emily Ducati. Fun fights overall, AJ. Come on, man. I think that we're in line for a lot of finishes in this fight. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too, man. Especially, even the Jacoby, Da Unjung, Puna's back, man, fighting. There's even Herbert Burns, man. Gilbert's little brother's in this one, and it's gonna be a very fun night of fights. Even though it looks like it's just main event heavy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sleepers on this one. It's going to be very fun to watch.
And this is why we say every time, man, leave it to us. We'll let you know the good fight. We'll let you know all of that good stuff. Because for right now, the people, they literally say name value. Michelle Watterson, Brian Ortega. Those are the only people they know. And then they're like, oh, those are only good fights. There's a lot of great fights to be had. So, folks, tune in once again on Friday for the preview show. UFC Vegas 59. Almost 60 events out there in good old Apex, right? So, tune in for that. Get us to 410 subscribers before the preview show drops. You know what time it is, folks. This was your show this week. We appreciate you. AJ, you have any last words for the people?
Ooh, just love the support, man. Catch us next week. It's gonna be a fun one. We're gonna get back on those props, folks. I promise you, it's gonna be that how we're gonna keep it rolling the rest of the way. It's a brand new week. But other than that, man, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the support. We're going to be up the way, all the way, like Derick said, just another baby step towards 1,000, towards 1,000,000, towards all the things. But either way, we'll be right back here next week doing it again with all the same picks, all the same stuff, all the content you love to see. We appreciate all the support.
The Bloody White Podcast, folks, is your favorite fighter's favorite fight show. You know what time it is, folks. So that is it for us. Until next time, folks. Peace.